The Buried Secret of M. Night Shyamalan is a documentary, sort of, that aired on the Sci-Fi Channel in 2004, right before The Village came out. It was a 3-hour block. I watched the whole thing. At the time, Shyamalan was coming off Signs, which was a gigantic commercial success, and as most of you probably know, was a major influence on me, made me want to make movies. I got a tattoo of Signs right here on my arm. Obviously, I'm a fan of Shyamalan, and so at the time, I was really ready for this. It was marketed in a very clever way. Shyamalan put out a statement in the media saying that he was dissatisfied that the filmmakers were going to release the movie, and it was marketed as a documentary that was meant to be a puff piece about Shyamalan and the making of The Village. But along the way, they discovered secrets about his life and decided to go in a more invasive, personal route. And so we have a 2-hour, really fucking long mockumentary. This was a hoax. The entire thing is fake. It's written, it's made up, everybody was in on the joke, and at the time, it was a little maddening. Because even as a fan, I was only 16 at the time, I remember thinking like, what's the point of this? You know? The point ended up being market the village. But I'd like to talk about this film in historical context. Watching this film in 2021 feels like a completely different experience. And I just want to get this out of the way really quickly. As you guys know, I love M. Night Shyamalan. I love most of his movies. He's made a few that I don't like, that's for sure. There have been countless articles, videos, posts, tweets, whatever, bashing M. Night Shyamalan for years. You're not going to get that here. You're not going to see me support that. You're not going to see me feed that machine. It's run its course. I am not about bashing artists on this channel. Sure, if somebody makes a bad movie, I'm honest about it. And in the past, films like Dragon Ball Evolution or say the Emoji Movie have genuinely made me upset. But for the most part, my goal on this channel is to be respectful of filmmakers because I'm a filmmaker and I know how hard it is. I know how hard it is to make a fucking movie. But in the case of The Buried Secret of M. Night Shyamalan, this documentary, there's a lot that I want to discuss because now, in 2021, watching this film, I find it absolutely fascinating that this exists. It kind of feels like somebody said to him or a producer on The Village, let's make like a big making of about the movie. And then somebody went, yeah, but like, what if we did this? And then it spiraled into this crazy idea where you bring in an Oscar-nominated documentarian to make a fake movie about you as a filmmaker. On paper, that actually sounds fucking hilarious and really fun. And there's about an hour of this movie that, for me, is. In fact, if this was actually a feature movie and it wasn't necessarily about a real director, it was a fictional director, the concept of this is absolutely genius. You're interviewing a filmmaker who you just do it as a job, and then you discover there's this horrible secret, and you just keep delving deeper and deeper and deeper. The problem was the media attention surrounding it and the fact that it was really just to market The Village. That made the whole proceedings feel kind of icky. For instance, in the film, he is notoriously late for every single interview. Someone actually instructs the documentary crew to not look him in the eyes while he's directing. The craziest thing to say. I laughed my ass off. I forgot entirely about that line.
Before we go down, because I want to take you down to meet night and you can actually see the set, there are just a couple of ground rules that are important for you guys to follow, and this includes the crew as well. The most important thing is not to make eye contact with Knight while he's directing. It's very important for him to be able to stay focused. And please don't get into any of the actors' eye lines, obviously, because that would be a disaster. And please don't talk to any of the crew members either. Until I introduce you, I don't want you to approach Knight. We have a very clear communication. I'll be able to tell when it's cool for you to go over and when it's not, and I'll just make everything run a lot more smoothly. Okay. And I think other than that, it's going to be great.
One of the funniest things about this documentary is that whenever Knight is on screen early on, when they're trying to get an interview with him, there's audio malfunctions. And it says that's the first of many audio malfunctions, suggesting that there's some sort of supernatural presence surrounding the filmmaker.
Hi, nice.
How are you?
Hey.
Hey, I like your duck.
Thank you so much for taking the time out. Yeah, terrific.
And I just have to wonder then, how does he make movies? He's around audio and visual equipment all day. If none of it works around him, how the fuck does he make movies? Oh, man. One of the more curious aspects of this documentary is the hilarious viewpoint of M. Night Shyamalan's younger fans, namely some probably 15 to 17-year-olds who are hanging out outside of his house. Just saying that out loud should tell you that that wasn't really the best idea. All that being said, it's one of the funniest scenes in the film.
So, thanks for talking to me about this. You guys are diehard Night Shyamalan fans, huh? Like his movies a lot?
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially Signs, Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense. Yeah.
Unbreakable.
What about you? Like his movies a lot?
Yeah.
How come? What about him?
They're just real mystical little scenes here and there to foreshadow events happening later in this movie.
So you just, you hang out here often?
Every once in a while.
Yeah.
You ever see him?
Occasionally. See him drive by, make eye contact. He understands why we're here.
Fans.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah,
fans.
We're good fans.
Autographs?
Occasionally. We've gotten one or two.
Yeah, I've got some. I mean, you don't know about M. Night? Don't do it.
They don't know what about him.
No.
He's a filmmaker, Hollywood A-list.
Everyone knows.
Everyone knows what.
Well, M. Night's connected.
Connected in what way? Like he has a lot of contacts in the industry? Do all these kids just have spec scripts they're trying to get made? So in another, certainly not creepy at all scene, the kid invites the documentary crew into his basement and they play with a Ouija board and they ask the board if there are any spirits in the room connected to Night, and the piece moves, which is like a big moment. The following scene is what, in my opinion, is the biggest problem with this documentary, like an objective thing that could actually be way better about it, taken out of all the stuff I've already talked about. They start rewinding the footage they just shot, like it's on a VCR or something. How are they constantly transmitting this footage to VHS? Just so they can rewind and fast forward things. Who the fuck was shooting on VHS in 2004, let alone an Oscar-nominated documentary? And nevertheless, they rewind and fast forward this Ouija board like 20,000 times. This happens a lot throughout this documentary. Whenever they uncover some piece of evidence, they have another scene afterwards, rewinding and fast forwarding, linking things together, because as an audience, we're probably too stupid to remember that something just happened, so we need a constant reminder. The biggest issue with this documentary is that the runtime has been padded significantly. There is no reason for this to be over 2 hours. This thing should have been 80 minutes max. I actually think there's a really compelling, entertaining mockumentary within this. If I cared more, I would make my own cut of it, but there's no reason to do that. But there's just so much extra stuff. The filmmaker wandering around snowy streets, walking up to strangers, asking them questions about the supernatural. He paces in his hotel room and calls people. He paces in his hotel room and calls people. 4 scenes with a pizza delivery man who eventually becomes integral to the story, explaining the history of some sort of ghost or demonic presence that the director might be attached to. There is so much extra stuff during this documentary that doesn't need to be there, but let's try to focus on some of the more hilarious aspects. For instance, to get into the exclusive M. Night Shyamalan chat room, this kid shows the filmmakers a quiz in which they have to answer questions about the director.
You have to take this quiz first. What is M. Night Shyamalan's first name?
I know the answer to that. Manoj.
Right. Where was M. Night born?
Pondicherry, India.
Correct. What was M. Night's intended profession?
Teacher, lawyer, scientist, doctor.
Which film was a major influence for Signs?
I'm gonna say Close Encounters.
No, it was The Birds. Where did Knight attend university?
NYU.
Which number has particular significance to Knight?
I'm gonna guess 6.
All right, you're in.
What is this?
Well, this is where people all over the world who are fans of M. Night can be connected here.
For the record, I would have gotten all those right. This chat room works on a ranking system of 1 to 5 in regards to how much of a fan you are, 5 being the highest. Like if you're a 5, you're the biggest fan. He's like, I'm a 3.
What's with the numbers? I see I'm 1, True Fan 3, Raven 5.
The numbers, they show like your level of how deep you go, the higher your level is.
Well, what are you?
I'm a 3. He's actually the only 5 like I've ever met.
So he has this creepy chat with somebody who seems to be a 5, a super fan. And he has all this information. He says he knows they're in Philadelphia. He guesses what type of clothes the director has on. It's hilarious. This whole sequence is great. What I also find very funny about this documentary, whatever you want to call it, is that the director in his hotel room, he's got memorabilia from Shyamalan's films all over the room. Sixth Sense posters, Unbreakable posters, Signs posters. Who does that? I'm making a documentary about somebody. I'm just going to get their posters and put them all up over the room. Just that one little aspect alone should have clued viewers into the fact that this was fake. But that's also something I want to talk about. In 2004, social media wasn't a thing. Nowadays, you watch something, if you're alone in your house, you can just log on to whatever site you want to, search what you're watching, and kind of experience it with other people. See other people reacting to it, talking about it. You're sort of having a communal experience even though you're alone. In 2004, you didn't have that. I just sat in my house watching this. I couldn't log on instantly and be like, do other people think this is bullshit? It's just whatever you think in that moment. Stuff like this could never get made today. Or if it did, they would have to be a little more upfront about it, or at least be in on the joke, kind of. Like, there's a lot of times where you market something a certain way and you sort of create secrecy around it, but by the time people are actually watching it, they know it's a fictional thing. That's at least how I would like to do that if I ever did a movie like that. When it comes to something like Cloverfield, for instance. You watch the Cloverfield trailer, you're intrigued by it, but you know there's not a fucking monster walking around New York City, but nevertheless, the viral marketing campaign worked and we wanted to know what was going on. But a movie like this really did play with us. It straight up made people believe it. And if you just go to Google and restrict the searches to the year 2004 and read articles and reviews from that time and post on sites that are still around, you can see that for some people, it worked. The documentarians also show a fascination with the fact that there are multiple black limos hanging out around the village set. And they seem to think that that's really creepy, a sign of something very bad. I'm like, it's a closed set with tons of A-listers. Why is this so strange to you that there would be black limos ready to escort the cast back to their hotels? Or it's a very normal thing that there would be transportation on set, and yet they try to create this mystery around it. It's fucking cringeworthy. It's one of the worst aspects of this documentary. The things that they try to make seem strange that are very normal for an A-list set or a big set like this. Like, they constantly are wondering why this set is closed. They say things like, why would this set be closed? What could he possibly be doing? Making a fucking giant movie. Like, I don't, indie sets are closed, let alone a Touchstone Pictures movie. It's fucking stupid. Now, one of the funniest parts of the movie is that they actually got a huge celebrity to interview for it. And he was at the height of his fame during this interview. But the way they set it up is also kind of strange. The documentarian asks a former childhood friend of Shyamalan, according to this film anyway, why Bruce Willis wasn't in Signs. Because they had made 2 films together. He's like, was there a falling out?
Now, what about these actors? Breakout movie, Sixth Sense, Bruce Willis is in it. Second movie, Unbreakable, Bruce Willis. And then there's, with Signs, Bruce Willis is not in that. Was there, is there a story behind Signs or behind the casting of Signs? Or?
Well, I don't think it was any, he was dissing Bruce Willis in any way.
No.
I think he was simply, looking to work with different actors, and that's not to say he wouldn't go back and work with Bruce Willis again.
What, does he have to cast Bruce Willis in every movie? Is that just what he does? He just makes Bruce Willis thrillers? That's a stupid question, but nevertheless, it is a thread to get to this guy saying, well, originally there was another actor cast for Signs, but it didn't go well. So they find out who that guy is by once again talking to the level 5 Shyamalan fan on the chat room. And we learn that it is a certain Mr. Johnny Depp, who appears in the film, is in on the joke, and gives a great fake interview. In fact, the things he says in his interview are kind of how I feel about this movie.
It's really not, I don't know what he's up to, I don't think anybody does, but it's not worth it, I mean, it's only cinema, It's only movies, man. Just, just have a good time. Step outside once in a while. Go get a donut.
Just go get a donut, man. It's movies. Just have fun. That's how I feel, Like, movies can be really hard. Obviously, there are days where it's very stressful. And there's this aspect of Hollywood that I've always really disliked that treats filmmaking like it's this magical, impossible to describe thing that just, poof, there's a movie. It just happened. I love when a filmmaker is really honest and just explains step by step, this is how I made a movie and here's how we built this thing. I love when I hear a filmmaker talk about that. So there are aspects of this documentary that do kind of rub me the wrong way, even though it's fake and you're kind of just supposed to, laugh and not really take it seriously. There are messages in the film that I don't actually agree with, even though it's a mockumentary. And next, they get the only cast member from the village who is actually willing to sit down for this thing, Adrian Brody, who is like, yeah, how much you paying me, man? I'll do it. He takes an extremely dramatic sip from a cup and states a line that Johnny Depp just said was something that he was told should be memorized when talking about Shyamalan in public.
All people have secrets. Life would be boring without secrets. Don't you think? And I remember because I had that question at the end. Don't you think?
All people have secrets, Life would be boring without secrets, don't you think?
They're setting up the idea that Shyamalan doesn't want people to talk about him in public and that he makes people memorize lines instead of being honest. But that doesn't matter because in the next scene, the documentarians have to rewind and fast forward both scenes and play them back and forth so that we realize what we obviously missed because we're fucking idiots, right? There's a long sequence where they go out partying and they play pool. A girl asks Shyamalan for a Polaroid. They go to a cheesesteak restaurant and somebody wants to take a photo with him. When the Polaroid is developed, it looks like something out of The Ring. So they start all this speculation about what exactly is going on. They ask people for childhood films of Shyamalan, friends, people who knew him when he was a kid, and they get some. These are actually real films that Shyamalan gave them, which is kind of cool. I always loved watching those on the special features of his DVDs. And this is where the mythology starts to creep into the movie, finally. They suggest that Shyamalan's films were influenced by real events in his life, that when he was a child, he actually drowned in a lake and was declared dead until resuscitated by paramedics. And while he was down there, he saw a bunch of ghosts, and they now have a connection to him, and he actually can't leave the Philadelphia area, because if he leaves the Philadelphia area, he will lose his abilities and his films will start to suck. I'm not making this up. This is where a picture of a boy named Henry is introduced, easily the creepiest fucking thing in this movie. This fucker might be in your nightmares later tonight. But the thing I really want to talk about in all of this is that once again, these documentarians are treating something that's very normal as this crazy thing they've uncovered. The idea that a filmmaker might actually make movies based off of personal experiences. As if artists don't put themselves into their work or use their own experiences in life in some way in their writing or their directing or their painting or whatever. Every fucking artist does that. Everybody puts a little piece of themselves in their work. It's fucking crazy to me that they decided to make this seem like some giant conspiracy, that in Unbreakable, Bruce Willis drowns as a child and that M. Night Shyamalan drowned as a child. Isn't that fucking crazy? No, it's normal because it's like getting the demons out, It's very fucking normal. It's crazy. Oh, what a conspiracy they've uncovered. Like, for instance, there's a scene where the documentarian is calling Shyamalan's mother, or perhaps an actress playing his mother, I don't know, and he asks her why The Sixth Sense got so much darker than his previous film, Wide Awake. As if something must have happened.
With The Sixth Sense, his movies got darker.
I don't know, because he used to be afraid to be alone,
Motherfucker, he wrote a horror movie. That's why it's darker. Like, that is just crazy to me that they're like reaching to this extent. Let's just suggest that because he decided to write a horror movie after writing a spiritual family drama, that clearly he must be fucking haunted. No, he just wrote a horror movie, man.
can't go nowhere. His blessings are here. We cannot leave.
They actually visit someone they credit as an occultist who says that Shyamalan is bound to a certain spot, the Philadelphia area, that he can't leave. And if he does, his powers will go away, as we already discussed. I just think it's so, like, have you ever lived in your hometown or around your hometown your whole life? I have. Does that mean you're like a fucking demon? Or did you just not move away from home? This is the aspect of Hollywood that I hate. That somebody decided that a filmmaker who doesn't live in LA, that something's wrong with him. I find that legitimately offensive. That's crazy to me. It's just crazy to me. So eventually they uncover in some of Shyamalan's childhood films, supposedly, a house that resembles the house in Signs. And they make a giant fucking deal about it. That there's this house from Shyamalan's childhood when he was about 10 or 11 or 12 that looks just like the house in Signs. A very normal looking house that you might commonly see in places of rural America. But apparently it's a big find. It's a big buried secret, you might say. So they go to this house, and what is probably the creepiest scene of the movie, a crow flies out of the door, and they seem to capture something, perhaps. Now, I haven't really talked about these birds yet, but they seem to be attracted to Shyamalan in the film, and it's an aspect of the mythology that's actually kind of cool. Like I said, I'm not out to bash this movie or the filmmakers involved. I do think that this concept is actually kind of genius. It's just that they went about it in a way that was not the best. But in this house, in a mirror, they capture an image of Henry, the little boy from the picture. And they start to believe that in some way, Shyamalan is communicating with this boy who's dead, and that this is somehow allowing him to make these magical movies. And that's really the buried secret. When trying to ask Shyamalan about this history, he gets very upset and leaves. And he calls the documentarian and essentially godfathers him.
Nathaniel, I'm not meeting you today. I don't know what conclusions you've come to, what things you've made up in your head. Let me tell you some realities. No matter what you show, people are going to think it's fake. They're going to think someone made this all up. That's what this is going to be in the end. Some funny piece of entertainment. And when that's done, they're going to switch the channel and watch their favorite sitcom. No one's going to understand why you're doing this. They won't take it seriously. Not one single soul. I mean, think about it. What could you possibly show that they wouldn't think you made up? Have a nice life.
Like, I genuinely believe that documentarian's about to wake up tomorrow with a horse head in his bed. This is where the movie should end. Right then. Cut to black. But then he gets more useless, unnecessary interviews with random people from the street talking about the supernatural. There's so much in this documentary that could easily be cut out. But honestly, taking it out of historical context, I am fascinated by this. I find it extremely entertaining. I've watched it twice in the past couple days. And me and my buddy Eric Striffler over at Pretty Much It recently did a commentary for this film and The Village. And you can currently see a snippet of our Village commentary up on the Pretty Much It channel, which I will link in the description below. You'll be able to see a preview of the buried secret of M. Night Shyamalan's commentary very soon. If you follow them on Patreon, you'll get those quicker. We had a great time watching it, but I watched it again after that even, and I'm just blown away that this exists. Like, the equivalent is in 1993 on the set of Jurassic Park. An Oscar-nominated documentarian interviews Steven Spielberg trying to get him to admit that he's using real fucking dinosaurs, that he must have a time machine, and in some way he's transported the dinosaurs to the set, and we will uncover this buried secret of Steven Spielberg. It is that crazy. And if anything, I think that as a piece of media, this film does have a place to be analyzed, to be discussed, to be appreciated for its audacity, the insanity of the movie, and just the fact that it actually exists entertains me to no end, despite clearly some ill-advised ideas. And it didn't do any favors for Shyamalan, that was for sure. But I'm so happy that over the years he has started to make films that are personal to him again and that they've been good. I loved Servant Season 1. I'm very excited to see Servant Season 2, depending on when I post this. I either have seen the first episode or I haven't. I'm not sure yet. I'm filming this early January, so I love the man. And I, as a fan, like, I'm endlessly entertained by this movie, even though it's like, that probably wasn't the best idea, but I'm just glad that it exists, I guess, because it occupies this weird space in my Shyamalan fandom, and I love that I can watch it every once in a while and hopefully introduce it to some people, even though clearly those involved are kind of embarrassed by it. I do think that it could be at least appreciated for what it could have been, because it certainly is not very good, but there are portions of it that are, and that seem like a potential genius idea that just wasn't explored to its fullest extent. I'm not going to grade this movie. I don't even know how to grade this movie. I just wanted to make a video about it. I would also like to review his other film, Wide Awake, which I will do very soon. And I hope you guys look forward to that. Thank you so much, as always, for watching, guys. And if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.